refuses to buckle.
Now he did overstep the mark because he's got it.
I kept giving it to him. I wanted to hurt him. I wanted to, really hurt him in his face. And it wasn't a great game, but I wanted to hurt him.
Darts might look like a gentleman's game of skill and precision, but behind the oche, it's been home to some of the wildest controversies in modern sport. From record-breaking fines and explosive feuds to scandals that ended careers altogether, these are the players who proved that being world-class can also mean being world-infamous. Gerwyn Price isn't just another world champion, he's the figure who splits darts down the middle. Some see him as a fierce competitor who brought a fresh edge to the sport. Others? They call him the biggest villain the PDC has ever known. It all started back in 2019 when Price made headlines for all the wrong reasons. He was fined more than £21,000, the largest penalty in darts history at the time, after a fiery Grand Slam run that saw him clash with Simon Whitlock, square up to Gary Anderson, and unleash a storm of social media posts that the DRA said crossed the line. To make matters worse, he was handed a suspended 3-month ban, putting his entire career on notice. But controversy only seemed to fuel him. Crowds booed louder, rivals grew colder, and Price leaned into the chaos. His aggressive celebrations and confrontational style turned every match into a powder keg. Then came the moment that cemented his reputation. At the 2023 World Championship, facing deafening jeers, Price pulled out a pair of industrial ear defenders in the middle of his match. The image went viral instantly. Instead of silencing the crowd, it made them roar even louder, and within weeks, the PDC banned headgear during play altogether. One man's protest had literally rewritten the rulebook. And if you thought things would calm down, think again. In 2025, Price blasted conditions at a Premier League event, calling the setup pointless, before deleting his Instagram in frustration. Not long after, he responded to a chorus of whistles by whistling back at the crowd, creating a bizarre showdown between player and fans. Love him or hate him, Gerwyn Price has become the sport's lightning rod, someone who can't step on stage without sparking headlines. And the craziest part? For all the drama, he's still one of the best throwers the game has ever seen. If Gerwyn Price is the sport's lightning rod, Andy Jenkins became its cautionary tale. A former World Championship semi-finalist and longtime pro, Jenkins had built a reputation for raw talent and fiery clashes. But in April 2025, his entire career came crashing down when the DRA dropped one of the harshest punishments in darts history, an 11-year ban for match fixing. Investigators revealed that Jenkins had deliberately manipulated the outcome of a dozen Modus Super Series matches. Even worse, he'd placed nearly 90 unauthorized bets on darts, breaking one of the sport's clearest rules. The fine? Over £17,000, enough to bury most players financially, but the damage to his reputation was beyond repair. For many fans, it felt like a betrayal of the game's integrity itself. And yet, this wasn't the first time Jenkins had made headlines for the wrong reasons. Back in 2009, he received a lengthy suspension after a physical altercation with fellow pro Terry Jenkins, no relation, adding fuel to his bad boy image. Over the years, that rap sheet grew longer, and when the 2025 ruling landed, few were truly shocked, but everyone was stunned by how far it went. An 11-year exile is effectively a career death sentence. What makes Jenkins stand out from others on this list is the sheer finality of his downfall. Where some players came back from controversy, Jenkins' story ends in permanent disgrace. In a sport already fighting for credibility, his name is now stamped into history as the one who crossed the line too far. When you talk about darts, one name towers above the rest: Phil Taylor. 16 world titles, unmatched dominance, and a career that defined an entire generation. But what makes Taylor belong on this list is that greatness doesn't erase controversy, it can magnify it. Taylor's first major scandal came in 2001 when he was convicted of indecent assault following an incident with 2 women after an exhibition event. He was fined in court and escaped jail time, but the conviction left a permanent mark on his record. For many fans, it was the first glimpse of the darker side of the man who would later be hailed as the sport's greatest ever player. Fast forward to 2012 at the World Championship semi-final against Raymond van Barneveld, and Taylor delivered one of the most infamous moments ever caught on a dart stage. After a high-pressure finish, Taylor stormed across the stage, refused a proper handshake, and shoved Barney in front of thousands of fans and millions watching worldwide. The crowd gasped, commentators scrambled to explain it, and the footage still circulates today as one of the most shocking flare-ups in PDC history. For all his records and titles, Taylor's legacy is complex. To some, he's the benchmark every player will forever chase. To others, he's proof that no matter how high you climb, controversy can still follow you. And perhaps that's why his name continues to dominate lists like this one, because greatness and controversy often walk hand in hand. If Taylor was the unstoppable champion, Peter Manley was the man who turned darts into theatre. Known as One Dart, Manley carved out his legacy not just with throws at the board, but with feuds, stunts, and mind games that made him the PDC's first true pantomime villain. One of his most unforgettable moments came in 2002, after losing the World Championship final to Phil Taylor. Instead of shaking hands, Manley turned away, leaving Taylor hanging. The crowd booed, commentators called it disgraceful, and Manley shrugged it off as part of who he was. It set the tone for the rest of his career. If there was a way to stir the pot, Manley would find it. The feuds kept piling up. In 2006, during a tense World Championship quarter-final against Adrian Lewis, tempers flared so badly that Lewis stormed off stage, furious at what he saw as blatant gamesmanship. Manley relished the role of villain, often smirking as the boos rained down, knowing full well that the fans loved to hate him. What makes Manley unique on this list is that his controversies weren't about breaking the law or bending the rules, they were about showmanship taken to the edge. He weaponized crowd reactions, leaned into his rivalries, and made himself the man you couldn't ignore. Without him, darts might never have embraced the theatre and drama that made it a true TV spectacle. But the flip side is clear. Manley's antics also cemented a reputation that sometimes overshadowed his actual skill. Even today, when his name comes up, most people don't remember his biggest wins. They remember the boos, the feuds, and the handshake he refused to give. He wasn't the best, but he might have been the most entertaining villain the PDC ever produced. Not every controversy in darts comes from career-ending scandals or deliberate villainy. Sometimes, the spotlight is enough to push even the most respected players into unforgettable moments of chaos. And few examples capture that better than James Wade, Adrian Lewis, Justin Pipe, and Gary Anderson. Let's start with James Wade. Known as the Machine for his calm, clinical finishing, Wade stunned the darts world at the 2019 World Championship, not with his darts, but with his behavior. After defeating Japan's Seigo Asada, Wade suddenly erupted. He shouted aggressively on stage, clenching his fists, and later told reporters he had wanted to really hurt his opponent.
I wanted to hurt him. I wanted to, really hurt him in his face. And
comments spread instantly, sparking outrage from fans and fellow pros alike. Within 24 hours, Wade issued a public apology, revealing that the outburst had been tied to a hypomanic episode linked to his bipolar disorder. The DRA still fined him, but for many, the moment revealed both the human vulnerability and the unpredictable danger of elite-level pressure. It was a reminder that even the most composed players can crack when the lights are brightest. Then there's Adrian Lewis, a two-time world champion and former protege of Phil Taylor. Lewis was known for his brilliance on the board, but also for fiery clashes with rivals. In 2018, during a UK Open qualifier, Lewis lost his cool completely. After a heated exchange, he shoved opponent Jose Justicia on stage, forcing officials to step in. The PDC immediately suspended him pending investigation, and the DRA later handed down a £3,000 fine and a 3-month suspension, though it was suspended for 6 months, meaning he avoided sitting out long-term. Still, the stain stuck, and Lewis's reputation took a hit. For a man once tipped to dominate the sport, it was the kind of controversy that cast doubt over whether he'd ever fully live up to his potential. And who could forget Justin Pipe's cough gate? At the 2018 World Championship, Pipe was facing Bernie Smith in a tense match. Just as Smith stepped up to throw at a crucial double, Pipe appeared to cough loudly in the background. Fans and commentators immediately accused him of deliberately trying to distract his opponent. Pipe denied it, insisting it was coincidence, but the DRA wasn't convinced they hit him with a £3,000 fine. The moment went viral, sparking debates about gamesmanship, etiquette, and where the line should be drawn. To this day, the word Coughgate sticks to Pipe's name like glue, overshadowing much of what he achieved on the oche. And finally, Gary Anderson, one of the most respected champions in darts, but even he hasn't escaped the chaos. In 2018, he found himself locked in a fiery Grand Slam final against Gerwyn Price, with verbal sparring and shoving that made headlines worldwide. That same year, he was also part of one of darts' strangest viral controversies, the infamous Fartgate. During a match against Wesley Harms, Harms complained of a foul smell on stage, implying that Anderson had let one slip to put him off. Anderson laughed it off and denied it. Harms stood by his claim, and the internet turned it into meme fuel overnight. While it was a lighter controversy compared to others on this list, it showed how even the most decorated players can find themselves caught in bizarre headlines that take on a life of their own. Together, these 4 stories show just how fragile the line is between greatness and notoriety. In darts, all it takes is one moment, an angry shout, a shove, a cough, or even a whiff of scandal to leave a permanent mark on a career. Some controversies in darts are about fiery tempers or gamesmanship. Others go deeper into scandals that damage careers, reputations, and even the sport's public image. 2 names stand out here, Jelle Klaasen and Richie Burnett. Let's start with Jelle Klaasen. Once tipped as one of the brightest young stars in the game, Klaasen's career was overshadowed by an incident in 2012 that would haunt him for years. He was convicted in the Netherlands for sending an explicit photo to a 15-year-old girl, a ruling that led to community service and a fine. For Klaasen, it wasn't just the punishment, it was the stigma. Fellow Dutchman Michael van Gerwen, who had been close to Klaasen, reportedly cut ties, and the scandal lingered every time Klaasen walked on stage. Even as he tried to rebuild his career, the whispers followed him. For many fans, no number of 180 seconds could erase the fact that his name would forever be linked to one of darts' most serious controversies. Then there's Richie Burnett, a player with a world championship title on his resume and a reputation for raw talent. But in 2015, his career came crashing down after a doping test at a PDC Grand Slam qualifier returned positive for cocaine. The ban was severe, 18 months out of the sport, a punishment that effectively erased his momentum. Burnett later spoke openly about the personal struggles behind the failed test, including his battles with mental health and the pressures of life on tour. In some ways, his honesty won him sympathy, but the fact remains that his reputation took a massive hit, and his story became another cautionary tale of talent undone by personal demons. What makes Klaasen and Burnett stand out is that their scandals weren't about crowd boos or mid-match antics. They went beyond the stage, into the realms of legality, doping, and personal collapse. These incidents reminded the darts world that the players we watch under the bright lights are also human beings, vulnerable to mistakes that can cost them everything. For fans, these darker chapters raise difficult questions. How much can you separate the player from the controversy, and should talent on the oche outweigh what happens away from it? Those questions don't have easy answers, but they make the stories of Klaasen and Burnett impossible to ignore. Every scandal in darts leaves a mark, but some go further, they change the game itself. The PDC has had to adapt again and again, rewriting the rulebook to keep up with the chaos created by its most controversial stars. Take Gerwyn Price. When he strapped on those giant ear defenders at the 2023 World Championship, the move was so disruptive that within weeks, the PDC banned headgear on stage altogether. One man's frustration literally created a new line in the regulations. And even his constant battles with booing crowds have forced the organization to rethink how to handle fan behavior, though the problem of jeers and whistles remains as fiery as ever. Then, there's Andy Jenkins. His 11-year match-fixing ban in 2025 wasn't just a punishment for one man, it was a wake-up call for the entire sport. Betting scandals have haunted other sports for decades, and darts knew it couldn't afford to look the other way. Jenkins' downfall led to tighter monitoring, heavier fines, and zero tolerance for even the smallest hint of gambling on matches. Phil Taylor's 2012 shove against Raymond van Barneveld may look tame compared to Jenkins' case, but it triggered its own ripple effect. The PDC doubled down on player conduct rules, emphasizing respect between opponents, and officials became quicker to step in whenever tempers flared. Players like Peter Manley and Justin Pipe showed how gamesmanship could push boundaries too far, and each fine or ban was another step in the PDC's learning curve. Even off-the-board controversies had an impact. Jelle Klaasen's conviction and Richie Burnett's drug ban forced the sport to confront its image. Darts, once seen as pub entertainment, was now on global television. Sponsors, broadcasters, and fans expected higher standards. Every scandal added pressure for the PDC to professionalize, tightening codes of conduct, drug testing policies, and social media guidelines. And then there's the fans. Booing, cheering, and even chanting have always been part of darts culture, but with modern stars feeding off or fighting against the noise, the PDC has had to walk a fine line between atmosphere and abuse. Price's battles with hostile crowds proved that the fans themselves can shape the drama just as much as the players. In short, every controversy didn't just stain reputations, it reshaped the sport. The modern PDC we see today, with stricter rules and a sharper public image, is the direct product of years of drama, scandal, and backlash. Without these incidents, darts might still be a niche pub game. Instead, it's become a global spectacle, one where the line between hero and villain is never quite clear. So what do all these stories tell us? From Gerwyn Price's ear defender protest and Phil Taylor's infamous shove, to Andy Jenkins's career-ending ban and Gel Clarkson's scandal that shadowed him for years, controversy has never been far from the Oki. Some players leaned into it, turning booze into fuel. Others were undone by it, watching reputations crumble in front of a global audience. But here's the fascinating part. Controversy hasn't killed darts, it's made it bigger. Every headline, every fine, every viral moment has pushed the sport further into the spotlight. Fans tune in not just to see who hits the doubles, but to see who cracks under pressure, who sparks drama, and who dares to break the rules. And maybe that's the secret truth about darts. The line between hero and villain is razor thin. Today's crowd favorite can be tomorrow's scandal. The players we celebrate for their brilliance are often the same ones we talk about for their flaws. That tension, the mix of skill, ego, and chaos, is what makes darts not just a game, but a spectacle. So now it's your turn. Which of these players do you think deserves the title of most controversial in PDC history? Did we miss someone who belongs on this list? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because in darts, the debate never really ends.